Okay, this is the Plainfield Planning Commission on March 3rd, 2025. And we're going to start the meeting. We usually start the meeting with a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting. Can we have a motion?
I'll
I'll
make
make
a
a motion.
motion. Well,
And a
second,
second?
whatever.
Any discussion? Okay,
No.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the minutes are approved. I'm recording this meeting, which apparently we're required to do, but it also makes the keeping the minutes much easier because I don't have to do it during the meeting. I can just play it back and keep track of it that way. So the agenda for the meeting is to just discuss the additional changes that we want to make, assuming let's assume that the zoning is going to pass. If it doesn't pass, we sort of start all over again and try to figure out a way to recoup and still get the work done. But assuming it passes, we discussed a bunch of changes. I sent that out. It's on the website. But some of them are just corrections to things that went wrong in the zoning, like removing the 40-foot minimum. We're going to have multifamily dwellings up to 4 as a permitted use, more than 4 as a conditional use. Permitted lot size is 1/5 of an acre, less than 1/5 to 1/10 is a conditional use. We're going to add that adaptive reuse. I won't go to read it, but we wanted to add forced processing to rural residential, suggest that limiting lot sizes smaller than 1/5 of an acre in a major subdivision to 30% of the lots in the village district. We got a better definition of conditional use. We wanted to add the Goddard College campus and Spruce Mountain Inn to the description of the village district in the zoning, and a revised language for the residential care home with 1,000-foot exemption. And we're going to warn a public hearing. It's doing the amendments is the same as doing the whole vote for the whole zoning. We got to warn it with neighboring towns, put it in the paper, and warn it that way. So we have more public input. Even though we've discussed all these things, we weren't able to get them in to the zoning document for the timeline to make the Australian ballot at town meeting day. So is everyone comfortable with that timeline and those amendments? I mean, we're still going to have a hearing on it.
I want to bring up another suggestion.
Yes.
In section 8.3 enforcement.
Yes.
So the second paragraph says violations of all section 3.6 signs or violations including temporary use, event or recreational vehicle or movable will be considered a civil ordinance. And after my recent having to go to court over a violation about a recreational vehicle, it was kind of recommended by the lawyer that we should probably not have that paragraph.
So you're
as a whole new layer.
Okay, under 8 what was that again?
8.3 enforcement.
Okay.
And it's talking about violations that have to do with signs and temporary use, recreational vehicle, or movable structure to enforce as a civil ordinance, which means you have to write them a ticket. Mm-hmm. And then the penalty becomes really kind of big, like it's 20, then 50, and then $100 for every day afterwards.
So you're suggesting just taking that whole paragraph out?
Yeah. Like
now, so what would be so for all other violations? So this next paragraph would read for violations of this ordinance, and take out the all other.
And I mean, we haven't ever gone around and dealt with temporary use or signs, and recreational vehicle has been our biggest difficulty, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's a whole it's a whole other like can of worms kind of in a sense. Like you gotta, I can't quite understand it. It didn't go well at court because we didn't use the civil ordinance violation, and it's something that's not typical to be in zoning. So it might be
So,
something we want to talk. I mean, I don't know. It adds one more layer to doing enforcement violations.
so after the court proceeding, the lawyer representing Plainfield said, best advice, take this out.
That's what. Yes.
Okay. Um,
I mean, I can talk to him a little bit more
yeah,
about it, but it's not usual enforcement.
okay. I, to warn the hearing for the 24th, I have to put in, I'm going to put in what we're
Mm-hmm.
specifically going to discuss. And then I had another list of additional amendments. And my thought was to sort of keep it simple rather than to try to do them all at once.
So just throw this one on to the next.
Well, I mean, this is based on legal counsel. We're striking a section. We're not adding new language that it's controversial. Uh, I'll just read what I have listed as additional amendments for, like, I'm going to call it round two, and that's the subdivision regulations. We remember the 300 feet of frontage without reasonable access becomes an issue. So, I haven't really got adequate language for what reasonable access is, but thinking of the bearish conundrum that 300 feet of access, if you have 300 feet of access through a swamp or a wetland, you really have access to that parcel. So that was one thing I wanted to add in round two. We talked about the slope restrictions for slope above 15% and below another number, say 25, having a licensed engineer do the site plan. And that's something I think we need more discussion on. I don't think we're ready to do it for the 24th. We need to do some formatting on the document. I added a document to the website that has pages on it and redid the table of contents. So people were complaining that it wasn't easy to read. So I managed to do that. But the document still needs better formatting because we copied and pasted, or I copied and pasted a bunch of different documents in one place. The margins aren't lined up. It's just not a very formal document. So I'd like to at least do those changes. And then there was another request, and it made sense to have the south side of Recreation Road remain in rural residential because of the flood risk to that. And that made sense. And that would be a map change that the Regional Planning Commission would have to do, but a pretty simple change. So those things I wanted to, and more that we can discuss. So do we add this enforcement violation change to the first round because it's based on legal counsel, or do we put it on the second round? And Karen, if you feel like that's something that needs to be done, I think she left and needs to come back in. She went somewhere. And I think based on legal counsel, if we can say that at the hearing, I think we can go ahead and do that. But Karen's not there.
I made it back.
Made it back. Okay, you're in a different box. But it still seems to work. So I was saying, since it's based on legal counsel to remove a section of the zoning that doesn't seem to be working well, and it didn't work well in court, that we could put that on this amendment. And I would just add that, striking that paragraph and changing the words for violations of this ordinance. Jesse, you got a sense on that?
That makes sense to me. I don't have anything to add to it.
Okay. Karen, would you rather see it sooner rather than later? Or did she go away?
Either's fine.
Okay. If you're okay waiting, I'd rather keep it because I've asked the select board, this is what we want to do for changes. I kind of didn't want to overload them with it. So I'll put that on round two.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I'll do that. We've got some members of the public here. Wanted to have if there's any input for the, well, we're hoping the zoning will pass. And then we're hoping we can do this additional amendments if round one to get those immediate corrections. So if anybody wants to add some thoughts, we like to have as much input as possible.
Will, can you remind?
Yep. Jesse, go ahead.
Can you remind me what exactly is the process wherein the select board will sort of immediately make those amendments after the zoning is approved?
There was a restriction on towns below with populations below 2,500 that they had to do it by Australian ballot. A bigger municipality like Montpelier or anything above 2,500 could do it with the legislation or the municipal council. That restriction was removed, and so even small towns can make changes through the municipal board. So for rather than having to do another whole round of Australian ballot for these changes, if you do the required hearing process, the required notices, where the planning commission has one public hearing, the select board has one public hearing, the select board can then make the changes, and after that there's still a 30-day period where voters can rescind that. Then that's an easier process. We decided, because we've been talking about the Australian ballot, the people voting on the zoning for so long, that even with this removal of the 2,500 population limit, that we would go ahead and do the Australian ballot. So
so zoning gets, assuming the zoning got approved by Australian ballot on town meeting day tomorrow, the select board, would they then approve the amendments as part of town meeting, or would that happen in the next select board meeting?
They would do it on their own schedule. They would have to have, we hold our hearing 15 days warning. We're going to try to do it on the 24th. Then they have between no less than 15, no more than 120. They have their public hearing. And after that, they could either say, make changes, accept the changes, and vote on those changes, and then it would become part of the document.
Okay.
So there's still, and you can still rescind with 15% or 10% voter signature. So it's the same process, and that's the way most zoning is approved. Not that many towns do it by Australian ballot anymore, but we're being traditional on this one. Alicia, you've got a question, a comment?
Yeah, I do. I've been out of state for a while. I'm trying to sort of catch up, so bear with me. I'm not clear from looking at the slate for town meeting day how voters would be aware of what's in the proposed additional amendments. And since some of those things like lot size and minimum lot size and conditional use of smaller lots and the percentage of smaller than the regular minimum lots are issues that have been of significant concern, how do people know that is what is coming in those amendments? I'm concerned people have no idea and just look at the zoning revisions as is and think that's it and vote no.
Well, it's on the planning commission page on the website, but that's not always, not everybody looks at that as much as they look at Facebook or Front Porch
So
Forum.
true.
Yeah. So I don't know, what's did we put something on on Front Porch Forum or something? It's probably too late to do that now anyway. Do we wanna, Jesse, you wanna print some out and have them on the table there?
I was just thinking that at the very least, I would have that available if it comes up in the discussion of approving the zoning. I
Okay.
think,
You have that document, or I'll send it to you. It's on the website. I mean,
yeah, I'm looking right at it.
okay.
Yeah. My concern is leaving it to people's initiative to
Oh, yeah, you're right.
educate themselves after all the work that's been done is not a sure thing.
Yeah, you're absolutely right on that. So hopefully, well, we could do handout, but even that isn't going to be that great. So we'll hope for the best, and we'll try to get the word around. And Jesse will be there at the meeting. But
Sorry
thanks.
not to have asked that question earlier. I didn't
Yeah.
I didn't know it was a question. Okay,
Yeah, well,
thanks.
I did put it up on the website, and
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I guess I didn't toot the horn loud enough. Charlie.
Yeah, 2 points. One of which is that this is on Australian ballot, and having a sheet or whatever at town meeting is politicking about an item that's on the Australian ballot, and I would check to make sure that that's kosher.
Mm.
Really, it's politicking within the meeting, and at a meeting, all people should hear all comments and be recognized for them. Please check on that.
Yeah, I think I heard this discussion one time before, like the ballot items, and I'm not sure we're gonna end up doing anything other than Jesse's gonna able to answer some questions. But don't like the library and stuff have those pamphlets down on the lower level?
If something is on the Australian ballot,
versus the floor item.
it could only be discussed at the informational meeting that precedes, and that's an open meeting.
Okay, then I guess
that's my understanding.
Okay, well that's a good point. We don't want to get into trouble.
Okay.
We want to
The
do it
second
right.
point, my second point is that it apparently the public has only one opportunity to comment, and that's on this Australian ballot. Anything after this on the amendments to the amendments or the secondary come up before the select board only. And I think that's a little bit odd that you're not getting the public's input, but you're depending on the select board for part of it. You went out of your way to include the public on the Australian ballot, but then it seems to be out of the public's hands. And in that same vein is, I wonder when those regulations, whether the Australian ballot passes, whether the time period for appeal passes, and when the select board might take up revisions, when do those revisions apply to any application that might come across or might come forward?
My understanding is that, well, first there is the statute is relying on the public input to take place at the public hearings that the planning commission holds and the select board holds. That's the area for public comment. That's the way the statute is written. When those regulations come into effect is once the select board warns its hearing for the proposed amendments, then the zoning administrator starts to review permits with those regulations in mind. They don't even because there's a timeline between when that permit is granted. It's almost like a provisional permit, but the regulations take effect after they will be in effect after assuming the zoning passes, they'll be in effect. But there's I think a 30-day period where they can be rescinded, and the same is true if the select board approves the amendments. They become effective then, but there's a 30-day period of rescission. And so the public comment is in the hearing process, not in the vote. That's
Charlie back here.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, during the hearing for the Australian ballot proposal, the secondary revisions were discussed.
They were, but we couldn't put them in because once the document gets warned, it's warned to the, it gets sent to the Regional Planning Commission, the neighboring towns, and at that point, after there's a point where the select board accepts the document and puts it up for an Australian ballot. At that point, it couldn't be changed.
Yeah, it just sounds Byzantine that
It
the
is.
public had input, but their input couldn't be taken into account.
You good? Yep, got it. I know. It would have been I had assumed that the select board could make those changes, but because it was an Australian ballot, it changes the ability to make those changes.
I agree. The Australian ballot is Byzantine.
It is, but it also is
most
democracy.
people do not consider it that way,
Yeah.
but this is proof.
Yeah, well, the ability to put it on a ballot and have it meet the statutory regulations is onerous.
Thank you.
Yes. Well, thanks for I mean, it's good, and it's good that we probably should just lay low with the public. As Alicia said, we probably should have done something a couple weeks ago. But that's can't do it. Can't get everything right. So that's all I had for the agenda for tonight. Karen's good with the 24th. I'm good with the 24th for the preliminary round of changes. Because I mean, part of our problem is we tried to do too much at once, and we'll see how the first rounds of addition amendments go, and then hopefully those seem to be the most important in terms of the lot size and stuff. The others are items that have come up, and I think more items will come up as things go on. So, any other public comments out there? Okay, well, I like to get everybody in because, Jesse's got something.
Will, one small point going back to the minutes that we approved at the beginning of the meeting.
Yes.
I glanced at them and I realized that actually the date at the top of the minutes is incorrect.
Is it? Okay, thank you.
It says January 17th, but it was actually February 17th.
Okay, yeah, that's me. I'll fix that. Thank you. Somebody's got to keep after me. Okay, I will make those changes. Thank you. Because I work from one document and revise it and change it to things, and sometimes I go back and look at it. So I will fix that.
Okay.
Okay. Is just asking out in the public for voters any sense on whether the zoning is going to pass, or is it going to just go down in flaming defeat, or any sense out there? There's certainly a lot of discussion going on around the village expansion program, and I've tried to keep the two somewhat separate, even though they are connected in various ways. But I'm
not a clue.
I'm not a clue either. I was telling Jesse, we just have to be prepared for it to pass or to fail and pick up the pieces and move on.
Mhm.
We still got to get it done.
Right.
So, okay, if there's
Okay.
no other business, I'm gonna I'll add the violation to the additional sentence. I'll make the change to the minutes because I like to try to be as accurate as possible. And other than that, if there's no other business, a motion to adjourn.
Great.
Adjourn.
Okay, thanks everybody. Thanks everybody for showing up and giving us some thoughts. Okay,
See you tomorrow.
okay. Good night.
Night.
Thanks.